Welcome to the Immerse podcast. We are your hosts, Alex O'Keefe and Dan Ramsden.
We aim to immerse you in education via our guests, bring communities together, embrace positive change and help create solid habits that yield the path for our health and longevity.
Right, here we go. We're live, guys.
We're live.
Right.
We're live.
We're live and alive.
Yes, you can say that.
Feeling very alive now.
Yeah, good.
Welcome to the podcast, everyone. We've got a very special episode. We've got Louise Mortimer with us today. Louise, you are a breathwork specialist, breathwork coach.
Mm-hmm.
Just before we get going into this, I just want to explain what's kind of just happened.
Yeah.
Very briefly.
Yeah.
But you've just facilitated an hour breathwork session with us there. And let's just say we felt the full benefits. Did we, Dan?
We both cried.
No joke.
Yeah.
No joke. So that's... In order for us to come and talk about this authentically, we've just experienced it. And I just want to say thank you first for that, for allowing us to be in that space.
You're welcome. Thanks
It was
for
very
trusting
special.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that were really beautiful energy. Lots of self-doubt creeping in and uncertainty before we started, and I thought, I know where my head's going here,
Yeah.
because I've got that control element of my brain that clings on nice and tight. But yeah, once we got into the flow of it, and it were a beautiful experience, wasn't it?
It was, mate.
Yeah.
It was. It's just having that moment in time where you're still, and with what we've got going on right now, and obviously a lot of other people, life's busy, and we're allowed to relax, not worry about anything, and just let in what was going to come in. And just explain kind of what sort of session you held for us there then, Louise.
Yeah, so I'm a mixed modality breathwork practitioner, so breath practitioner, so I deal with functional side, so the down-regulated nervous system, but the session that we just did for the hour was conscious connected breathwork, rooted in a lot of ancient practices, but people have been using these breath types for millennia, but we've in the Western world sort of taken it and used it in a therapeutic way. These sessions are amazing, and emotions aside, that peace and that clarity that becomes created by the breath is really powerful, because it's like that ownership, and that's what I took you through. So we started off nice and gentle, went through a bit of an activating breathe, got a bit faster and came down the other side. And I think that's the thing with people. People are always quite scared about emotions. There's two things, emotions and control. Because when you are rolling through life, whether you're ambitious, you've got a lot of family life going on, or whatever's going on, you become so woundly tight up, tight.
Coiled spring.
Yeah, it's where do we find that space? What is that rest, and what does it look like? Whereas this, it really does give you the invitation and the allowance to just surrender and give into the body and just give it a bit of rest and a bit of peace. And whether emotions come up in that sense, then that's a nice thing as well. It's a scary thing, because it can be really hard to be vulnerable and be open. We don't really know each other, we've briefly met, and then I'm here, and then I'm holding space for you.
Yeah.
You nearly cradled us in your arms at one point, so we were sobbing.
Scooped you up
one theme was sadness for me, and one theme was happiness, and they both brought tears out. We're quite open men, we don't mind, and this is why we do this podcast, because we want to share these messages with other people that may feel like they struggle with that sort of thing. And we want to be that voice to say, this is okay, we need to find the space to do this. And if you are struggling with your emotions, if you're listening to this, I highly advise that you take this time out. It's free, it's oxygen, and you just need to find space and give yourself the allowance to surrender to the breath. It's just exactly that, isn't it?
And I think it's beautiful, because obviously the predominantly my retreats and my day things are all women, but my group stuff and my one-to-one work, I want to work with a lot more men. You guys are open, and you shared beautifully at the end what you were not intellectualizing, but what you'd been through and what brought up. But when I do work with men and I do acknowledge it, we are very different as men and women. it's like it gives you that allowance to just feel and not really have to speak about it, not have to put words to it until you have the words. You know, sometimes I'll work with men over group sessions or in a one-to-one capacity, and they won't share a single thing for 3 sessions, like 2 or 3 weeks.
Wow.
They just have to get comfortable with that uncomfortability of, you know, not accepting how we feel, because they come and go. You can either lean into it or not. And that's what this breathwork practice does. It gives you a really nice, gentle way to like lean in with the breath, slow it down, come back out, lean in, and really test that, dipping a toe into what's going on in the subconscious, because it's a lot more than just the breath. It's about the psyche. It's about like our subconscious and what our daily life is formed by what's going on up here.
So I want to go back just before we go into that experience again. We'll come back to that nearer the end. But I'm really intrigued to know your journey.
Yeah.
So it wasn't this sort of hippie kind of life before, or it not to sort of label it as such, but you know, people just associate. It's the association of things like, oh, you've got this sort of hippie out there mindset to do this sort of. We need to get rid of that stigma, and we need to all, you know, accept that this is an essential part of life, and it's oxygen that we need, and it's regulating emotions. We all need to get a bit more aware of that. That's not been a linear path for you. No. Can you go back and explain what's going on?
For me, I've been through a lot, whether it was abusive relationship, bullied at work, like just all these extreme events which created this anxiety that I really struggled to get out of. Like, the anxiety was to a point where, and I was working a full-time job. I've worked in corporate sales for 10 years up to last year, in medical sales or business development, very highly corporate. That was it. And it got to the point where I was so scared of the world, like any interactions, like I couldn't speak to someone without overrunning like what have they said, how have they judged me and how am I perceived, and it just created this anxiety which was so visceral that my whole world like fell apart. And my journey started with all these practices, was with the cold and swimming outside. I just got to the point where, and I never lost that hope. There's always been something in me, and I'm always wary saying this because I always feel like it's not ego based, but I'm built for something different, something bigger. You know? And no matter how sad I was, no matter how depressed I was, there was always this voice in my head going, there's something better than this. You know,
that's
there's
powerful.
something better.
That's powerful.
So, and I'm good at throwing myself into things, whether it's a new hobby or, you know, all these other things, or hyper focused on that. So when I started swimming out, I was bad. Like, I didn't leave the house for a month, you know, scared to go outside, and I just started swimming outside.
What was that? Was that just pure anxiety, depression? What was going on for you?
Mixture of both. The anxiety was so extreme that I just isolated myself, and through that isolation created like real deep depression, like didn't want to be here anymore, couldn't connect with friends or family, just because I'd shut down. There was no connection to self. Like, I was gone. But there was always that voice, there's got to be something, there is something better than this. That little bit of hope.
That sounds like the cocoon phase.
And then
it was
the
like, butterfly.
And that was it. But then after that, it was like a 2-year journey of me. When I first got into the cold, and I'll be honest, and I say this very openly, I wanted to swim to the middle of the lake and never get out. Like, I was bad. Wow. Real bad. And I speak about this a lot, and try and help as many people who are going through those. I can't hold space for people who are that far gone sometimes, because I know my capabilities. But you can talk to people, you can be seen, and I can, you know, do whatever. But that was it. But then when I got in the water, and it's that cliche thing, like, just something happened. It was like that hope just sparked a fire. And then all the science benefits and physiological benefits I know now about the cold, looking back on it, I was like, that was the dopamine. That was the endorphins that I needed. That was that spark of hope. And then I just kept on going. And my love affair with the cold started. I was swimming outside all the time. Didn't have a warm shower for about 6 months. Like, just was so dedicated. That was my purpose. That was the thing that kept me alive. And I'd been meditating for ages. I was on antidepressants, but I never really got that. You laid down, you got that nice gentle feeling, but it was never that aha moment until I got into the cold, found breathwork, and then just started trying loads of stuff.
Yeah.
And I always say this to people, whether it's with me or someone else, you don't have to go to a group or anything. Go on YouTube. There are thousands of breathwork videos on YouTube. See what you like, see what you don't like. Try as many different things as you can. Build up that courage and maybe come to a group. Maybe reach out and ask about, working with someone. Because the breath, and that's what I did, started going to groups, workshops, delving into it, pushing myself too far, not pushing myself enough, like all that cliche thing of trial and error. But then that was it. Trained, started holding small wild swimming breathwork things, seeing that change in people, and then realising that I was very different, and the place that I was in, this sales job, that ambition, that drive, was all for people pleasing, to prove to other people and to do all that. So then peeling it back and going, I've still got that ambition and drive, I'm self-employed now, you've got to, but it's like, it's different. I'm not doing it for anyone else but me and the people who trust me to hold space for them.
Wow.
That simple.
I really felt that genuinely
Yeah.
as well. When we did that session, and particularly when we'd finished and we were allowed that opportunity to share what were going on for us, I really felt that real therapy side to you, and genuine just love of humans.
Yeah.
I think I've noticed it on like your social media pages and stuff as well, and it's obviously the word authentic comes up, and it is a bit of a buzzword, but forget all that shit. Being authentic, having the courage to be actually who you are, that takes a lot of guts. I'm looking at that myself right now, especially showing up online as who you are. Going back to what you were saying, the fear of being judged, anxiety, what will they think? And you've found that courage within you now to be living, truly what you're sent here to do by the looks of it, and I just want to say well done for that.
Thank you.
And I just want to take the listeners kind of through the journey of how we connected, because it's all about connection, isn't it? Our sauna brand, it's built on connection. Your Breathwork's connection, and we were just sat in Revive, weren't we?
Halifax.
Halifax Revive. Shout out to them guys. Having a nice coffee. We've just been in sauna and ice bath. Standard.
Taking the
and
rest.
I just sensed this high energy. High energy person.
You got pulled.
Yeah. Sense this high energy person talking at the counter, and I'm sure you said the word entrepreneur sparked me off.
I think I said it was I was talking to the receptionist, because obviously going self-employed, it's a journey for me. It's hard. I'm finding it a lot harder than I would like to admit, but you do it anyway. And I said something like, I'm in that delusional entrepreneur phase.
You just went, it was like someone threw a ball for a dog.
And you were you just excuse me. Can I talk to you for a second?
Delusion and entrepreneur, that's two words. So that's how we connected.
Just had a good old chat and just sort of opened it up a little bit. And I think I've always been that personality, whether it was on nights out or friends or whatever. People have always said, you've got this energy about you that I can just be open. The thing for me is shame. I lost shame a long time ago through whatever, it's not in me. But also looking at the deep integrity that it takes to not judge people. No one could. I am the wrong person to say. I've done so much stuff that's bad, good, ugly, in between, for me to be looking at anybody and judging them on what their choices are. And the thing is, whatever choices you've made or whatever you're doing, just come back to yourself, and it's all about that connection, that authenticity for me. And it's scary. And you have to lean into a lot of fear, because you have to be seen. It's easier for people to wear a mask and take that not connection with people fully by being someone different than it is to put the neck on the line and be truly who they are. And that's why I love this breathwork practice, because it's not about it matters what's going on and what you're going through, whatever emotions are, whatever it is. But the thing for me is it's more about how do we cultivate such a strong, deep connection with self, with ourselves, that no matter what's going on, you're so sure of yourself and your mission and your morals that you don't take judgment from other people. And that's from my journey. No one was judging me. No one was like questioning me. I might have had a few outbursts where it was like, oh, you know, that's a bit different. But then it's like, no, like that's not who I am. And if you can say that truly, hand on, that's not who I am, that's not what I mean. It's beautiful. But it is, especially on social media, I still find that very tricky to be as open and vulnerable as I am in these spaces out into the ether of Instagram and YouTube or whatever it goes.
I think, especially, I heard someone say it on a podcast, and it's like, you're going to win in 2025 by having the courage to be truly who you are. And that's like the and I like that theme. If that's a theme, then you know, I'm all for that. Because, like I say, I heard a really nice quote, and I'd rather be judged for who I truly am rather than a version of who I'm trying to be. And that's so true. And then
it's huge.
When you're okay with that, if someone's you're gonna get judged either way. So you might as well be your fucking self, aren't you?
But it is easier to be judged as not yourself. That's the easy choice. And it's such a slippery slope, because then the thing is, for me, if you're not truly connected to yourself and who you are and what is authentic to you, all those connections you're making out in the world aren't true connections to me. That's how I view it. I have to be so deep rooted in who I am, because I've noticed very quickly now the friendships that I have, the partnerships, the, you know, communication, it's all rooted in a deep knowing of who I am. It's so fulfilling. It's so, I think, and I want to try and give people that. Like, if you're feeling unfulfilled, like, we all feel tired, we all feel stressed, that's fine. But if we can take these pockets of time to reconnect with ourselves, like, a lot of people come to me and they go, I don't want to take anything out. Entrepreneurs, like, I work with quite a few entrepreneurs now, business owners, things like that on my programme. They don't want to take anything out. And I'm like, you don't have to, but the thought of adding something extra in is then like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, have you got 15 minutes a day for me? Then that 15 minutes becomes 30 minutes. That's all it is. And it is so profound, the change, whether it's taking that rest. And I always say it, like, I work at 110 miles an hour, and I've continuously done that my entire life. But until like a year ago or so, not getting that burnout, working so hard, burnout, time off, workout, burnout. So now I'm edging on that and being like, I still want to work at that pace. I don't want to slow down. It's not who I am. I want to work at that. I might have to peel it back every now and again. But we've spoken about this before, and I'll say it again. If you are continuously working to the point that as soon as you take time off or have a time off on the weekend and you're getting sick, you have to start looking at how you're connecting with rest and recovery and things like that.
Central nervous system recovery is a big one for you, isn't it?
Big.
Even coming down to the cold exposure as well. Do you want to give us your views on training stimulus, training overload, exposure to stress, recognising burnout, those sorts of things?
So with the cold is a stressor. It's a stressor that we choose. Anybody who goes in the cold will know that it's not enjoyable. I personally enjoy it. I've been consistently and like putting it in my routine, sometimes to a negative point, like saying when I was having cold showers every day. I probably realised at that point that it's a stressor. So you have to understand that if your nervous system is already in a like aroused state, cortisol's high, you're training a lot, work's busy, the cold is probably something that you can add in, but it needs to be very mindful. You know, if you go into a contrast centre, maybe just doing the sauna and a 30-second dip, because what we're trying to use that stressor for is opening up our window of tolerance to stress, not creating it being smaller, you know. And I think even though it's like, even if you are using the cold, you're still going to get those benefits, but you're still riding up that cortisol, like you're still not creating the nervous system. You don't switch one off to go into it. We want to go into sympathetic, which is our fight or flight. That's what happens when we get into the cold, but we go into it so we can bring ourselves back into parasympathetic, that rest and digest. We want a lovely fluctuating nervous system. And the thing with the cold is, for me, I never do times. I always say to people, like, ditch the time. Have an awareness of it so you know how long you're staying in and what your tolerance is. Start listening to your body. Because if you get in and you're fighting for that 2 minutes because you did 2 minutes the other day, it's not the same.
It's just an ego thing, isn't it?
Sometimes, yeah. Like
We've done that, haven't we?
Oh, yeah.
We've called each other out and
yeah. And it's that, and then
you're not getting in that 2 degrees today.
Yeah. And it's all fun, isn't it? But then it's like looking at it going, no, actually, I think you said that because when I met you, you were like, oh, I didn't go in the cold today. And I respect that. Yeah. Because we get into this thing of a tick box. It's a protocol. It's something we add in. It is, but it can also tick the boxes without it being so regimented.
Yeah.
Start listening to the body. Yeah. That 10 minutes in the sauna, like yesterday, could be 7 minutes to begin with. You know, knowing where your limit is and then peeling
it's
it
like
back.
Lifting the weight. Should you know? Can you? Should you?
Yeah.
Sort of thing. And it's learning
at what cost.
How to adapt it so that you can continue to flow in a healthy state through life.
Yeah.
That is exactly the ethos to our brand. It's the yin to the yang. That is the logo. It's the icon. That's what it represents to us, and that's the message that we want to get across to people as well. We don't have to just keep going foot to the floor. We'll go there as well.
Absolutely.
We don't mind that. We don't mind a challenge. You know, we'll train with elite athletes and we'll do that stuff too because we enjoy that challenge. But also we've got to come back and we've got to align it.
But if you're not listening to the body, and if you're not like. Obviously, like if you're doing like competitions and you drive, or you've got a business and you're going through big change or dynamic things and you've got to push it to that extreme like sometimes, but you can only do that so often where you feel like that 2 weeks after that project is finished, that competition, you feel like shit. I speak to people all the time and it's like you've pushed yourself and that's fine, you can do that, but just manage everything in between and around it. Like I'm trained. I can hold do breath work for like performance. I don't. It's not something I do. I do everything like out the gym. Yeah. What's our recovery? What's our rest look like? So then all these ambitions, this drive. I've got a real passion for people who like want more from life. Yeah. Nice. And being able to do that, so then the wheels don't fall. You can still just be. It's not such a crash. You might feel a little bit dip. You might have to rest a little bit more, but it's not pulling you back down to that where you have to stop. No one should ever get to that point.
I heard you mention the theme earlier about shame, and I think that's a very heavy theme across the board for a lot of people that train and that eat a certain thing or want to follow whatever it is that they're trying to do, whether it's earning money or anything, and you look at that theme quite heavily as well. And you've been a bit on a journey yourself with regards to that. I just want to say for me and my personal experience, for the first time in my adult life, from being self-employed and doing what I do, this Christmas I told you this, Al, it's the first time I've done very, very little, and I even drunk more alcohol than I usually do as well. At times, like I got pretty staggery drunk at one point, which it's not really, that's not me as such. And if I were to do that behaviour, I'd really shame myself for doing it. You know, there'd have to be a consequence, right? You've done this now, you must do this. You must get in the
rectify it.
You got to fix it. And it would either be a hard sweat out session to get all this shit out of my body or whatever it is. And for the first time I felt pure peace with the knowledge of I've just had a good time, like so what? It's okay. And it's not you characteristically overall, but it's just a moment in time that you feel like you needed, so take it. Is that the kind of work that you're sort of doing with other people as well, and you know, and yourself and your own journey? Are you there as well?
Like with shame, it's all about like leaning into that vulnerability and openness to accept things, and you know, not everything needs a fix, not everything needs like something like that. So you know, I was saying like my journey with training in the past couple of years, like I've really peeled it back, because it was a lot of going into the gym and my mind was instant, no matter how much work I'd been doing and how happy I was. As soon as I went in the gym, it was like, you know, you're fat, you need to do this, you're not training hard enough, you didn't used to lift weight, and it was constant. And I found I've got to a place now where I can take a step back. Sometimes it takes over, but I can really separate and look at it, you know, and go, interesting. Okay, why is my mind going to this? And it's conditioning as women, and you know, as do you do that? And for me, it's like not all about appearance. So it's about taking out that shame and really reframing it. But you have to slow down to do that, like, and really be mindful with it. It'd be easy just to go in and be like, if I do this, then I might lose 2 pounds this week and do all that. And it's like, well, actually, do I just enjoy training? Do I feel good afterwards? Okay, well, let's just keep it as that then. But that in itself is hard when you're, you know, constantly on. But I do talk to a lot of people about their training and not taking stuff out specifically, but you'll find that when they become more at peace with themselves, training doesn't become such a heightened thing. And I'm not saying people not going to competitions, you still got to have that discipline and drive for that. But there's no shame around, if I don't train today, the world is going to fall apart.
On that note, I've got a very sort of contradicting model, because I do help males and females get into good shape aesthetically. And some of that does come with some sacrifices with nutrition. You know, there's certain nutrition protocols to follow. Sometimes there's a bit of intense carb cycling approach towards the end, and it's all with a view of having that before and after that they were looking for. But what I try and teach them in that process is wherever you end up, that is enough. You like be happy with that and be proud with the fact that you've completed something, you've adhered to it, and don't then berate yourself once you've finished and go, oh well, I'm still not where I wanted to be. It's like, no, don't do that to yourself. That's not fair on you and the efforts that you've just put in. Brush yourself down, return back to normality, and then if ever you choose to do it again, you know what to do, you've got the tools to do it, but be okay with yourself is
and
always a message.
That's it, isn't it? It's like, I've got a lot of like time and respect for people who do bodybuilding. I could never, like, you know, the mental fortitude and stuff, or even just like journeys where you go on before and after. If that's what you want to do, I'm happy, as long as that's authentically a choice that's not driven by hatred for yourself, or, you know, trying to self-soothe some sort of feeling of not being enough. Like, we are all enough, but the world is just put on us that we have to be successful at home, our jobs and everything like that, and we do, and that ambition is all there. I just think we could talk to ourselves a little bit nicer in the reason why we're doing that. You know,
I just want to hit on the really refreshing fact that you're looking at improving people at, like, let's say, outside of performance, because most of the important work obviously is done outside of the gym and outside of competition and all that type of stuff. And I just love the fact that that's your focus. And I just believe, like, you know, me and Dan have just been sat in there crying as two grown men. And I just can't envisage another setting where that might occur. And maybe a message from you for someone who's you know, umming and ahhing about potentially should I try breathwork? I mean, what's your message?
I get it all the time, like whether it's ladies coming to my day retreats or full authentic change retreats, or just coming to, I do a monthly breathe like that where it's mixed and you can just come and breathe. You don't even have to say anything, you can come in silence and leave. But I hear it all the time, I'm not brave enough, I need courage. And it's like, I'm still trying to figure out how to market it in a way, because that's what it is, isn't it? Give the message. Where it's like, it's fine, you know, like these spaces that, but I think it's because it's quite new. I'm not hyper spiritual. This practice that we do is heavily spiritual. My spirituality is on connection to self, the psychic connection to self, and how we, you know, partake in who we are authentically. But I'm also very heavy on the science side. So a lot of people that come to breathe with me aren't spiritual. They don't go to those practices because you know, it's all the crystals and feathers and things like that. There's nothing wrong with that. I've got a lot of friends who lean into that and it's beautiful. And I've got a lot of time for that because it's a full spectrum. Not everyone's the same. It'd be boring if we were. But this practice is still a little bit far out there because people are like, well, what do you mean I could fix this, this and this? Fix, heal, go through post-general, however you want to word it. It's not a negative for me. Go in and just use your breath. Like you were saying this at the end, it was like, that journey that you can take yourself on is just by navigating how wide we make the breath. how it changes that pH in the blood, which changes the brain waves and just allows us to surrender to the body and just feel. Because you can't not feel it. That's what's affecting like life, like stomach issues, high stress, and it's all stress. It's all about emotional connection, is about how we can connect with it with grace and vulnerability to allow it to happen. Because if you don't, that's going to create stress on the body. So like coming to classes and stuff, it's sort of like, come and try it. I'm not like that, so I'm like, I'll try it. That looks good, I'll try that. But I do understand that it's not for like just throwing themselves into it. But just come, like like...
Well, you've got two advocates here, but, just try to play devil's advocate a bit. And you are very vulnerable in that space. Yeah. So maybe someone thinking, I don't want to be in a group setting and be open like that. Yeah. But you offer like one-to-one sessions, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So I do like an 8-week program. I found that a lot of people come in for one session and then or one or two, and then I'd not see them again. And for me and my work, and I hope I never don't feel like this, but I am very invested, like in people's happiness. Yeah. I see the change in people, and I find a lot of joy in it. But it's not my journey.
You don't actually have to say that. I'll say it for you. That is 100% legit. Yeah, it really is.
And that comes rooted from, I know what it feels like to be in pain. I know what it feels to doubt yourself to beyond the point of wanting to be here. And
the why.
Yeah, that's my why. Because I pulled myself out with the help of other space holders like myself in very different forms along the way. But the way that I wanted to do it, like with my 8-week program, is we're in it for the long, like it's only 8 weeks, but that to some people is the long haul, and the night and day of seeing people from when they start to when they finish is unbelievable. Yeah. People share stuff with me that they've not shared with anyone for 20 years. Yeah. They've been holding it. Yeah. And it's holding them back. Like whatever you don't process or go through, and that's where it's all quite like open with like trauma, and it's a buzzword at the moment. But I just think if you go through something that's so painful that you don't get to process in that moment, we hold it. So if you don't allow yourself to unpick it, that's our subconscious puts onto so all the conversations you're having, how you hold yourself, what your ambitions are, what your inner critic's saying. Yeah. It's all formed by stuff that we've been through, whether it's early childhood, our needs weren't met, or something traumatic, later on in life. And I don't say this with any lightness, it's okay, like that, that you can start unpicking it. But I do massively appreciate it's fucking scary.
Yeah. You just got to have the courage to start.
Or find someone, and I'm always like I said to you guys, thank you for trusting me, because it does I don't take sessions like that lightly, not a single one. And I think if I ever started to take it as like a flippant thing, it's time that I needed to start really looking at it going, this might not be for me. Because the integrity that you have to hold to open up these spaces and let people feel that they can be vulnerable is hard, and that's a lot of pressure, but that's the pressure I choose now. Not the pressure of the burden that I'm putting on myself with anxiety, the pressure of holding space for other people and hopefully giving people the opportunity to just be exactly who they need to be.
Yeah. Well, I would definitely feel that trust in coming back and doing further work due to that experience. Yeah. I mean, it's when you connect with somebody anyway, we connected before, we had a nice conversation, and then I was genuinely looking forward to today, and a little bit like, ooh, I've got this control theme inside of me, and I'm like, and I'm just about to step out of it, right, okay, so, but again, we're all about leaning into it, and you said, if you feel something, just keep leaning into it, keep going with it. Al, what did you feel throughout that experience, physically?
Physically, I said to everyone at the start, so just to let everyone know, I have had psychedelic experiences in the past, and it's not too dissimilar. Yeah. But like you assured me that something else is kind of in control when you're taking external things. You can regain control with your breath. Yeah. And that made me obviously feel a lot calmer at the start. But physically, I was a bit anxious at the start, and then it was just a journey. Yeah. Like the music as well. Like I was tapping into like my old, I used to DJ full time, and I was like, it was like some melodic techno coming up, and I was like,
I went a bit there.
Everyone's always music is such a big part for me.
So powerful, yeah.
Like these like non-member groups is very sort of housey, but it'll start very slow because that's the journey. Like whether you go along with it and get faster or deeper with the breath, you can do, but you can also pull it back, slow down, keep at that pace if that's where you want to go. You're in control. I'm just here to hold the space and make sure you feel supported. But if people can work with me for one-to-one, what I've started doing is I'll ask them to give me songs that resonate with them.
All right.
So they'll send me like a little playlist, and then I'll make all their playlists in and around that theme, because the music that resonates with me, like obviously I feed off it because I'm there with the energy, but if someone gives me something, unless it's something like show tunes, I can't work with that, I'm supposed it'll come up, but it's stuff, people like more drum stuff, or I've done stuff to drum and bass, and I love drum, like that's my youth.
Nice.
So it's sort of like that, or it can just be nice, gentle, and it's more bubbling under the surface. But music is such a big part of it
really
for me.
Powerful.
It takes you, whether you can hear me or not, because sometimes when you're in that space you're just in it, but the music and the beat's always there.
It just made me really like connect with that part of my life, where music was once my life, and it just made me think of like the yin and the yang of it. So now I'm thinking like, if I'd have heard this in the past, I were in a nightclub, I were behind the decks, with all these people, but now I'm listening to this music in a more of a healing space, and that were powerful, because when I was in the music industry, there were a lot of negative, temptations and stuff. So it had that like really light and dark side, but there in that space then it was just all light, because I love the music, and then I love that I'm here now taking a moment to because
you can have that as well, like sometimes, like, and that's like triggers. I talk like a lot about triggers. They can be very overwhelming, or like that it can take you back to a place, and that can be an uncomfortable place, or a realisation like, oh, actually I've not listened to that music for a long time, and I do love that, but you don't listen to it because it takes you to that negative space. So now it's like, it is just all about discipline of the mind and reframing stuff and being hyper vigilant with it. Like, no, I actually do, I'm not there anymore, I'm not that person. So you can connect with it, that love of that music, just in a different way.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I've got a very big party back. That was my avoidance. Like when I was going through it, a lot of drinking, a lot of partying. And that was a big journey afterwards. When I went, not just when I went sober, but when I went, tried to stop going out as much. Like the drinking was still there through lockdown. That was bad. And it's like, actually, I'm not processing any feelings without even realising it. It was just like, because it was so, you go out on a Wednesday, maybe go out on Friday, Saturday, you don't realise that you're not processing anything until it stops, and you're like, oh my God, is this what it's like to feel?
So true.
So that's why I love this breathwork, because it's not so stark. Any feelings that come up, and it's like, oh, do I want to speed up and lead into this, or do I want to slow down and just sit in this space and just bubble fingertips on it for a little bit? And that's why it's so powerful, because you're the guy. I'm there to hold space, but you're like captain of the ship kind of thing, to take you wherever you need to. And then the more and more you do it, if you do it, the more and more you trust the body to be like, I'm going to go balls to the wall. That's what I did, like really taking in the breath, leaning into it, and going to a place where it's just process and shedding,
towards that sort of 3/4 mark, coming towards the end. I felt like I was really, really deeply in the flow. I felt quite restricted in my chest to begin with on the exhale. I felt like I was like, do you know what I mean? And a bit staggery with my breath. But over time, and like anything, repetition, I started to feel a lot more comfortable with it. The tempo started to increase, but physically, it felt like my arms were nailed to the floor. I couldn't move my arms for trying. And my fingers were really numb and tingly. On a scientific standpoint, you did mention something about that before. Do you want to share what that is?
So when we breathe in that way, like most people, unless you breathe through your mouth all the time, we breathe through our nose. So when we breathe through when you breathe through your nose, you're already instigating that parasympathetic, that rest and digest, just the way that the brain processes it. So when we breathe through the mouth in this circular way, so you take an inhale and it's like an active inhale into like a passive exhale, and you circle through that, whether you make it faster or deeper. And when we do that, it offsets like the O2 CO2 balance, which changes the pH in our blood, which then changes the brain waves and how they're processed. So that's when the quietness of the mind comes in, and then we're going into that sort of altered state. But the tingling of the hands is again that pH change. It's just like getting cramp in the leg. We're changing that circulatory system by changing that flow of the body. So you can get sensations, you can feel cold and then hot. Again, it's just the circulation in the skin, but we can get something called tetany, which is like cramping of the hands. Mine used to go really bad, and I didn't mind it, because when you go up and come down, it does ease off. But when it first happens, and it can be really like, people always say it's like T-Rex hands or like that, it can be quite uncomfortable, but it does subside. What you can do is you can just extend to the exhale and build up that CO2, and then it comes, you know, back a little bit. But it's all that sort of playing around with it. But when I first started practicing in this, when I was just going to, I didn't know any of this, and it's only till recently that we do have the science. There's a certain part of it that we can't explain, because until you're scanning the brain during breath, you know, we don't really know.
I guess that
but
could
we
be
do
a
know
reason
it works.
why it pulls you out, though. You'd be thinking, why is my body feeling like this? And then you know, attempt to come out of what you're in, and again, it's reassuring yourself that that's okay. You know,
that tingle, that change. And a lot of people that do come, they don't like that, because it feels like you're out of control. I'm not in control of this sensation, it's just taking you away with it. But like I always instill, whether it's before the breathe when we do the frame or afterwards, it's like, it's all just sensation, and sometimes that feeling can be overwhelming as well, because it's like, oh, I've not felt like this before, and then leaning into that, because it's just a part of the process. And then as you'll know, when we started to slow down, that heaviness is still there of the body, but you can start moving the fingers a little bit more, you know, you can start feeling the skin rather than it being a tingling sensation. Sometimes you can get it around the jaw, but that's why I like bolstering it either side with the down regulation. That's why it's nice having both sides of the breath work, like counting people through the breath at the start. Like it's really like that's that strength to be like, you don't have to do anything, you just sort of like in for 6, out for 6, and it's just this beautiful balance, like for the body to give you that starting point to then go through that activation.
That vocal element to your coaching sort of thing, that were really helpful, because it can be quite confusing in a way. Like, am I breathing right here? Am I doing it right? But just giving that instructions important, really. I thought that were good.
Because I don't like, sometimes with breathwork practices like this, they're quite over with the instigation of where you're going on a journey, and I don't do that. There's a lot of sort of surrender. I'll always like instill that surrendering. What's the expansion in the body? What space can we create? And it's just about that, and it's all about just coming out of the mind and be truly like in the body for that moment. So just let it feel what it wants to. So then it's a lot of like, obviously I put my hand on your belly just to get you into that rhythm, and then keep you going with that, because it is hard work sometimes, because you're like, am I doing it right? Is it inhale, exhale? And it's like, and I still do that sometimes, and it's like, it is just an inhale and an exhale. Just pull that brain back, you know. You're doing everything, like we said, it's enough, just keep breathing.
There were a little mantra that were going on in my mind throughout the whole thing, and there were two things that kept cropping up, and it was trust the process and let it go. Let go. Kept saying that. And that's something that I really took from today, and it's really taught me something about myself on a deeper level. So I really appreciate that experience, and you know, anybody listening, you know, we can all improve ourselves and heal from something. We've all been through a bit of shit in this time. So, you know, whether it be from the childhood or even recent times, a theme came up for me that I shared that's still quite recent, and I'd clearly not shed all my tears on it. So.
And that's it. And like, we don't realise sometimes now I'll have these breathes, and I'll be so still, and I'll be so like in my body, and it's so quiet, and then I'll just have one solitary tear that comes, and it's like, You know, it's just that one thing that just needed, because obviously I've been throwing myself into my shadow, like what I've been through, processing it to a point where it's like, okay, I think I'm okay, you know, with that thing. But then there is still, stress is still stress. Situations are situations. So whether it's immediate, family, work, whatever you're going through, that still needs the time and attention for us to pause and acknowledge. There's no doing, there's no what we're going to do with it, there's no fixing, there's just like allowing yourself to acknowledge, okay, that's happened, I might be a bit sad, or on the other side, you know what, I'm so happy today. People don't acknowledge that enough. And that comes in a lot, like when I'm working with people, you become so stressed, not avoidant to a sense, but you don't want to feel that unhappiness, but then it just shortens the emotional capacity, so you don't feel the joy or the happiness either. So to be able to feel this joy and this happiness, we have to allow ourselves to feel the pain a little bit at whatever capacity we've got with that. Like, if you're not ready to do it, that's fine. I'm not saying throw yourself in and be doing it once a week or whatever. Dip in, acknowledge it, maybe write about it, talk to some friends, open up. There's just this unriding theme at the moment with everybody that I work with, everybody that I speak to. There's a lot of people that feel alone in themselves. And I think the way that I see it is we're just so disconnected from ourselves and our purpose, that authenticity. And it's just because we're not allowing ourselves the space to feel or just take that pause.
What do you think's playing a factor in that?
I was just about to ask that.
Of course you are. Same person. What do you think's playing a part in disconnection?
The world demands us to be distracted. Whether it's our phone, we have to be ambitious at work, so you've got to put everything into work. But then a lot of people are like, but I've got a family, so how do I put that on and that on? So there's so much stuff that allows us to not truly take on that feeling, that it's that sort of not that connection with anything, because we're just doing when we just need to stop and be. It's really hard when you're in that sense to just be present either with your family or your friends, and if you can't create that presence through that disconnection, you're going to feel alone. And it's even worse when you're surrounded by all the people that you love but still have that feeling. And it's just that connection, just that allowance to slow things down in here, in whatever capacity, because it might not be breath work, I would say this, it might not be the cord, might be going picking up knitting or starting running or whatever gets you into that state where you're not doing something, you're just moving the legs, moving the hands, breathing into the body,
being conscious,
just allowing yourself to come back to yourself. I think
because of the industry that I work in, I see it a lot, and I want to know, what is your advice to somebody who's training a lot and that struggles with rest? And they're very aware of it, and they can identify it in other people, but not themselves. What's your message to that person?
So it's not about taking anything out to begin with, because it's too extreme. Like, you can't just be like, well, I'm training every day and I feel like I need it. And it's like, okay, have you got 5 minutes after your training? Not rushing off to do whatever you need. Do you have 5 minutes as soon as you finish training to put some headphones in and just go breathe into the body? Create that separation. And that's all you got to do. Just start putting those little wedges in. And then you'll find that if you're going from that polarity of training and then coming back to that rest, you'll start seeing that it's not the intensity of the workouts, but that pressure need to train as much as you are doing becomes a little bit less. And it's that separation, whether it's, like I said, 5 minutes after, before you go to bed is a good one, because I always find that people who train a lot and feel like they need to be training a lot and they're in a gym a lot, they sleep very badly. So, you know, and it's one of those, they're sleeping and they're like, oh no, it's fine because, you know, I'm just one of those on kind of person. It's like, well, no, because, and I look at sleep a lot when I work with people. What's our sleep routine? If I can get people to sleep in 8 hours a night, and it's not always the case, you know, it's a hard slog, but in 8 weeks when I'm working with people, we will drastically change your sleep habits and your routines, and we look at that quite heavily. Sleep is, whether you do breathwork or not, sleep is a huge marker for recovery. Sleep quality, because you might be sleeping a lot but the quality is bad. There's a lot of caveats to it.
Yeah.
So sleep is one thing. Look at how you're sleeping, and then the second one is those little 5 minutes, one song. It can be a song on your phone, just to do nothing but cycle through that inhale to exhale.
And so, are you suggesting to find your own private space, shut yourself down, close your eyes, and just get within your body for 5 minutes?
Yeah, and every gym's got like a little, like a little padded area, that does like, you can do sit-ups or floor work or something like that. For one song, you can take yourself off and just lay on the floor. I mean, like immediately after
what
training.
if I look silly?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. That's a shame thing, isn't it? But like, you could. I guarantee you could sit with a song on with your eyes closed on a machine for 5 minutes and no one's going to notice. You could do it on a press.
Yeah.
People are so concerned with themselves in these spaces that they haven't got a clue what you're doing.
No.
But we're so self-obsessed with they've looked at me. Well, they've just glanced your eye in the gym.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those girls where...
Main character syndrome.
Yeah. But it's not like that. I think it's just that shame, isn't it? You don't want to be seen or like whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not one of those, like, I'll go into the gym and I'm good with the weights area. But I know that a lot of women do struggle with that.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to be, it's like everyone's looking at them. They're
Really
not.
common. Really
Everyone's
common.
just in their own head.
Yeah. My wife, that's all Jess was saying when she first started going to the gym.
Yeah.
She shouldn't want to be in that public space because she thinks everyone's looking at her.
Yeah.
I said, without sounding bad, Jess, no one's looking at you.
No. And the thing is, they might do, because we're all looking right between sets, like you look up and you might give a smile and they might not smile back, and it's that, it all comes back to that connection. So if you are so strong with someone glances you at, it don't matter.
Smile, say hi.
Because we've already put that selves on us with that shame of like, you might not be happy with the way you look, or you might not be confident in the way that you're moving through the movements, or you're not quite sure you're doing it right. That's the problem. It's not the other people seeing you. It's taking a step back and going, actually, why? What's the why to this? And it's usually those who don't like how they're being seen, or with the movement, and it's with everything. It's at work, am I doing enough? Is it right? Have I done this right? And it's like, well, actually, it's not that you're worried about the work, it's the worried that someone's going to see you fail.
Big one. I love that what you've said about that 5 minutes to one side. I can straight away take that and implement that into my life.
Absolutely.
And just for people that are listening that are maybe thinking, I really do want to implement this into my life. Okay, that 5 minute thing's a good thing. Is there anything else that you can advise from a breathwork perspective, and kind of talk us through a bit of a breathwork technique?
So the easiest one for me is, and I always say this with people getting on their cold journey, it's normally the easiest one because I like habit stacking. So I like doing things on top of each other. You're already going to get in the cold, whether it's a contrast centre or whatever, but if you're in the sauna or going in a cold shower at home, or just wanting to sit and breathe without that, put on one song. Nice and chilled, not something too crazy.
Slipknot.
Yeah, maybe. Sometimes I do.
So that's
sometimes
like a bit of lemon there.
And maybe that's my new thing, metal breathwork. Just let the air, so it's all through the nose. No times, no counting, and all you're going to do is let the air come in your nose, and then that same amount of air, we're just going to make it twice as long.
Nose still.
Controlled. So air in, and then just twice as long, like that.
Nice.
Cycle through. Your brain's going to be going crazy if you've got one of those brains. Mine's like that. And all you got to do is pull it back. Take it back to the inhale, and it might be that you do that 5 times, 17, 23. It might be that you connect with it straight away. Beautiful. Just have that song, and it's one song. People normally pick the same one because it's good for muscle memory, for that awareness, like, oh, this is the song, because you'll find that in high stress situation, you could do that in the moment as well. Like if you find that something's triggered you and you're like, oh, what do I do with that? Like, is it like, how this I'm uncomfortable holding this feeling? Take your song. And I do a practice, it's called In the Moment, where I do talk people through it, but if they want to do it on their own, one song, let the air come in, extended exhale, and that's all it is. We just need to learn to self-soothe. the nervous system, and just by extent. So when we breathe in, our heart rate goes up, but when we breathe out, our heart rate goes down. So if you extend that exhale, you make the heart rate slower, which in turn slows the nervous system down, which instigates into that.
Do you know where my mind's gone? Then it nearly made me laugh. Then did you see me like?
Yeah.
Head went a bit, didn't it?
I was like, where are you going to go next?
You do that by default. And it looks like you're smoking an invisible cigar.
You're
like, and you're like,
extend the
and it's
exhale.
a really good exhale. And it
Yeah.
just brings him back down.
Yeah, because the more and more you do it, the more and more you become aware of it. Like if something is triggered or you're needing to bring yourself back, or before you get into the cold, the body learns. Like if you know, okay, I know that if I'm stressed, if I extend this exhale, my body calms down and then I'm in a calmer state.
Yeah.
The body learns to self-soothe. The one place that I notice it is when I'm driving. Like, I don't know why I've got road rage. Sometimes it's just one of those, and someone cuts you up, or it's annoying, isn't it?
That's one of the hardest things to battle.
But I'll notice that I'll stop, and my body automatically starts extending the exhale without me even thinking about it. So you'll start noticing if you do it before the cold or in a stressor. All those other things it knows, because the body doesn't know different stresses. It just knows stress and stress response.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So if you're using the cold for something like actively go into that where the breath's out of control, the heart rate's going, but then after about 30-40 seconds you're like, oh, I'm safe.
Or
Okay.
stress habits.
Yeah,
as
and
well.
then it's like it becomes this thing where it's like, okay, that's stressing out, I know how to respond, and you become this unconscious thought then with it of being like, the body's like, extend the exhale, and it does it for you automatically.
Yeah.
Because you're conscious of it.
Yeah. Well, that's not like a factory default for us as humans in this society, is it?
No.
So that has to be trained, doesn't it?
Because you think like, and I always say this to people, like, if you're triggered by something or if you feel uncomfortable, the default mode for us as humans now is stare at our phone until we feel numb, until it's gone away.
Yeah.
And and you can lean on that as much as you want, but it comes a point where it's like it becomes a bit of an avoidant behaviour. And that's, I'll say that I'll die on that hill, but like we do become a lot distracted with it. And I say this to everyone, whether they're working with me or if I'm doing corporate events, I've done it before, and I'm like, does everyone have like 20 minutes a day? And they're like, no, so busy. And I'm like, just get your phone out for me a second, and it's instantly out. And they're like, oh, what are we doing with this? And I'm like, go to your settings, go to your screen time, and everyone just stops.
Yeah, cannot argue with
And
that.
then they're like, and I'm like, literally.
8
and I'm
hours
like,
a day, chump.
It's like that sort of like tension. I like working on sort of like leaning into that. Like no one can tell me. You might find it hard slotting it in at first. Everyone can find 20 minutes a day just to go inward. Like everybody.
Yeah.
And I find like working with parents as well, like I find that really beautiful, that transition that I've been seeing, because obviously I don't have kids, so it's beautiful for me. I can just take myself and live on my own, 20 minutes off. So then navigating that with people who have kids, like mothers, and the one thing I always say to mothers and fathers, do you have somewhere in the house that you can take yourself off that's just yours? And it's always a no.
Yeah.
No, like there is no like special place that you can sit, your bed shared, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like finding that. And what I found now working with so many people over like these 8 weeks is, and sometimes a little bit longer, they're doing the practices with the kids. I don't work with kids, I would love to in time, but there's a lot of stress on that, like making sure it's done right.
Yeah.
They'll be doing the practice with the kids, or the kids will start saying, Mummy's taking herself off, or Daddy's taking himself off for his time.
Yeah.
It's beautiful because it's that boundary. It's like you can't self-soothe them if you're not in a state.
So true. Yeah.
And it's how kids, frustrating, must be. It's that thing that they need a lot. But if you're not able to self-soothe and be present with them, or if they're getting angry, you're getting angry, that's just a learnt behaviour like for them. So having these pockets of time like where you can be with them and teach them.
Yeah. I think that's really important. Like
it shows them, and they're like, oh no, okay, that's fine. And it's it takes a little bit of time, but they're like, oh yeah, that's Mummy's time, that's Daddy's time.
Yeah. One phrase that I have with my daughter now, little Bodie, is if we're feeling a bit stressed, we say pause and breathe. Yeah. And everything's all right.
Yeah.
Don't always work.
Yeah.
But that is the thing that I'm trying to, instill into her mind that, okay, we're feeling stressed now, but if you just pause and breathe, your probably feel a bit better.
Yeah, I always do this one. It's the only thing that I tell people with kids is it's smell the flower, blow out the candle. So it's like on a finger, so they'll like that.
Nice.
Smell
like
the flower.
Oh, yeah,
it's like a visualization, and they can think it. So it's like smell the flower, blow out the candle.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's
It's
a
just
good
the
one.
finger because it's a flower or a candle.
That's
Yeah.
probably
I like
going to
that.
work better with children, that,
Yeah.
isn't it? More
So,
visual.
like, yeah, so
nice.
it's just
Like
that's
that.
one little thing because this kids are like they just have simple needs, but it's obviously heightened.
Yeah.
But it's all about like just how do we approach stuff. Like you can't be the best parent, the best partner, the best sister, brother, you know, whatever, unless we are living our lives where, you know, we're not seeking external validation. We should be validating that ourselves. And I've lost myself in that, you know, sometimes. But now I can sort of look at it and go, oh yeah, I find it interesting, like, oh, when I get overwhelmed, in the moment it's horrendous obviously, but if I get a bit overwhelmed or, you know, something happens, I'm like, oh, and then afterwards I'm like looking at it going, interested. You know, so it's not like, oh, that's done.
Yeah.
I'm really good at like self-reflecting on.
That's because you're checking in with yourself.
Yeah, and
you're
that's
getting
like that
used to it's the
awareness.
repetition of checking in with
Yeah.
yourself.
Yeah.
I once saw a spiritual post on Insta and it really stayed with me, and it said, I hope you're checking in with yourself more than your phone.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh wow.
Yeah. And that's
You
it,
know?
like sort of saying, like
Yeah.
it's so easy. The world just demands us to be so distracted. You know, we've got to be doing. And it's like, well, no, we can, you know, split it up a little bit.
Imagine if that screen time we spent on our screens were actually
know.
spent with the self.
I know.
I wonder what type of humans would be.
Yeah, probably.
Interesting.
Yeah. But that's it. But there is a lot of like learning to be, you know, and connection. But I think that's it. Like we're seeking that connection with like random people on the internet that we don't know. And it can inspire us.
Yeah.
But it can also be at a detriment. Like when you're scrolling through, like you can take in so many bits of information.
Yeah.
You know, and that's still a lesson and a learn for me because I'll notice and I'm like, what, you know, you're supposed to be in bed an hour ago.
Yeah.
Like I'm just human. I think that's the thing where people relate to me so much. Like when I'm having a good day, you'll know I'm having a good day. But if I'm having a bad day, I'm going to be open about having a bad day.
Yeah.
It's not a negative thing. It's just like, you know what, I'm having even my breath work.
Yeah.
We'll always share like how we're turning up. And, you know, a couple of months ago, I was like, you know what, I'm holding a lot of anger.
Yeah.
It doesn't detriment me holding a strong space for other people, but it's like, you know what, I've just gone through like a situation and, you know, I am holding a lot of anger with that. And then that'll ride out because I'm not avoiding it, I'm not pushing it away, I'm just letting it run its course.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it opens people up because I think I'm extremely open. I'd never expect anybody to be as open or delve into their emotional capacity as much as I do, but I'm trying to hold myself to a standard where I understand myself so much that no matter what someone brings to me, I can see it in you, you know?
Yeah.
And I think I've always had that. I'm hyper aware of everything at all times. So I can see the change in people. I can see when people turn up and they're a little bit different, but I'll never be like, what's wrong? You know?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, how's everyone doing?
Yeah.
And just having that openness to have it there. It's like, oh okay, you know, this is heavy actually. I'd love to share this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you see it a lot, like with like places like Andy's Man Club. Obviously, I've never been, but like it sounds very, you know, you don't have to share, but you can be open.
Yeah.
There's a lot of spaces now opening up for men like that, where, you know, you can just delve in. We were saying this, like it's a lot easier for women sometimes, not always, you know, to just be more open, gabbing with the mates and stuff. Whereas for men, I do feel for men at the moment, but I do feel a huge shift in the world where it's become a lot more acceptable for you to be a little bit more vulnerable, and that's okay, you know, because it's that strength in it. It's not going, oh, you know, you're crying all the time. It's like, no, I actually just understand myself a little bit better.
Yeah. It's seen as a strength rather than a weakness now to be more vulnerable, which is a good thing.
I see it as a badge of honour to let a few tears out now.
Yeah.
Because it was something that I really struggled with. You know, some bereavement stuff wrapped up in there, and there were a few tears about that as well for me. My mum came in and guided me home towards the end when everything had calmed down, and she were there with me, so that you know, that got a bit heavy.
Nice.
And I felt that as well. But I'm glad I can do that now. I think that's, you know, I'm evolving as a person, and that's what I'm encouraging, and this is why we're doing what we're doing, you know, because we're trying to, you know, put that message across that is okay to do that, especially as a man. I did find that difficult. I come from a rugby league background. It's a bit of a crazy culture of you've got to be tough, even if you hurt, don't show them that you hurt, kind of thing, and that can stay with you.
Yeah.
And letting go of that, I think, is an important thing. So.
And I think that's it as well. Like, you think that that's the default, like it can never be undone. And if you do start undoing it, it's all just going to open like Pandora's box, and it's not like that. Yeah. And that's what I love about that type of breath work, the conscious connected breath work, because it's like a ritual, like it's a start and an end. We start the session, we end the session, we share, and it's not like you're opening it up to then it's all out in the ether. It's like no, okay, that's a full circle, and whether you choose to come and open up to that again or be in that, then it's a choice. It's not like it's then going to rule your life. It gives it that nice continuity with it.
Yeah
it was beautiful, wasn't it?
Yeah, and we're coming close to wrapping this up. Louise, I really appreciate everything today. That were a bit of a change in sort of session, and I feel like I'm going to be back for more. I don't know about you, Al, but that were really something that I recognise that I need more of.
Yeah.
Where can we find you?
Yeah, so my Instagram's thespace.uk, the A is an X. Website's the same. I'm sure you'll tag it all, but if you find me on Instagram, drop me a message. I've always got time to speak to people. If anybody wants to come to a session, whether it's group or one-to-one, I do like discovery calls. I want everyone to feel as welcome and as open to come in, and I do accept it's sometimes scary, so just drop me a message. I'm always very responsive on that.
I just want to echo what Dan said and absolutely love that session. I'll definitely be I'm more conscious straight away that I need more of that, so that if nothing else from today, that's been worth us coming together. And thank you very much, Louise.
Thank you. You're welcome. And like I said, thank you for trusting me, because it can be a big journey, but also it can be a lot of clarity, and it's like I'm interested in that. Where's that going to take me? And I find that beautiful as well. So thank you very much for
big
having
recommendation
me.
From us. Keep being that beautiful butterfly, Louise.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you soon, guys. Thank you.
Bye.